Chapter 34. Brianna needed this break. On this scorching hot day, temperatures in the kitchen and cafeteria were unbearable. So when Louise, her supervisor, asked her if she wanted to bring Maggie her dinner, Brianna jumped at the chance. Taking a walk on the grounds would cool her down and give her a break from work. As she waltzed through the garden, she smelled the blooming flowers. She didn't know what type of flower it was, but it smelled and looked pretty. Maggie, who perched on a metal bench in a gazebo a few yards away, said, "They are beautiful, aren't they?" Brianna nodded. "What are they called?" "A belladonna. We use the plant and its berries to produce potions for medicinal purposes." "Isn't it poisonous?" Brianna asked, holding out the styrofoam carton and water bottle. "In big doses, yes, but in small or moderate intakes, it is quite therapeutic. Why don't you bring these to my place?" She motioned to several books resting beside her on the bench. "I'll have my hands full carrying these." "All right," Brianna replied. The longer she remained with Maggie, the longer she'd be able to cool off. They walked side by side through the garden until they got to Maggie's cabin. It was a quaint thing, the exterior made of pine wood. From the outside, Brianna guessed it was a tiny one-bedroom home. Once Maggie pushed the door open, she jerked her chin toward the inside. "Come in." Brianna slipped inside. Her eyes widened. The decorum was certainly homey. The plush futon resting against the far wall took up most of the area in the living room, along with the smoked glass square coffee table. "Sit and rest a bit, Brianna. It's air-conditioned in here. You'll be able to cool off. This is the hottest day we've had in decades." Brianna pointed out. "But I have to get back to work in the kitchen. Louise is waiting for me to help wash the dishes. If you're 10 minutes late, she won't miss you. Besides, if she gives you a hard time, just tell her to call me. I'll tell her you helped me with something." She walked toward the kitchen. "I'll get you some of my special lemonade to help you cool off." A couple of minutes later, Maggie moseyed back into the room carrying a tall glass of lemonade in one hand and her dinner in a plate in the other. She'd taken the club sandwich out of the container. She carried the water bottle under her arm. She held out the glass to Brianna, who grabbed it with both hands, making sure not to make it fall and break. It would ruin the Persian rug under their feet if it spilled. "Thanks," Brianna said, smiling. "You're welcome." Maggie sat sideways at the other end of the futon, so she could face Brianna while she ate. She twisted the cap off the bottle and took several sips before she asked, "So, how have you liked your time here these past 3 weeks, Brianna?" "I loved it." She couldn't contain her cheeriness. "That is great to hear. You seem sure of yourself. Have you taken any of the courses on self-confidence I'd suggested?" Brianna took multiple big gulps of lemonade. She hadn't realized how thirsty she was. The lemonade wasn't tart, but sweet and oh so quenching. She hadn't taken any of the courses or seminars Maggie had referred her to because she'd spent most of her free time with Chase. I've looked at a few, but I haven't made up my mind which one to take first." "Well, there isn't any time limit. You can sign up to any of them at any time." Maggie continued to speak. Brianna could see her lips moving, but she couldn't focus on what Maggie was saying. A dense fog had invaded her mind, making thinking and processing harder and harder every second that passed. Soon her eyes weighed and drooped shut. She attempted to open them again, but the feat was futile. Sleep overcame her, and she lost consciousness.
Chapter 35. Chase grabbed the coffee he'd picked up at the cafeteria, then sat on his couch. He'd sprawled the books he'd borrowed from the library all around him. He'd finished skimming through 2 of them. He still had 6 left. So far, he'd had no luck identifying the creature from his vision. Before he could pick up a 3rd book, his cell he had resting on the coffee table began to ring. He picked it up, expecting to see Brianna's name as the contact calling. She hadn't been in the cafeteria when he'd gone to get a coffee earlier. Alexa had told him she was with Maggie, helping her with something. But instead of it being Brianna on the phone, it was his Anamara calling. "Hi, Anamara." "Chase, how are you doing, sweetie?" "I'm doing okay. And how are you? Is everything all right with you and Mom?" He asked, concerned something had happened, and that's why she was calling. "Everything is fine. Don't worry. I'm just calling you to see how things are going. Have the witches made any progress?" He sighed. "No, Not yet, but Maggie said they are close. That's wonderful news. Listen, I'm on a business trip, and I'm staying at a hotel near the sanctuary. Why don't I come pick you up and we'll go out for a coffee, and you can tell me all about it? I'd love that, but I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to leave the grounds. Don't worry about that. I'll call Maggie and clear it with her. We won't be gone too long. Okay, if she clears it, then I'll see you soon. His aunt added, I'll text you what she says and where we'll meet. Bye. Chase hung up and resumed his search in the heavy textbook beside him when his phone vibrated a few minutes later. Glancing at it, he read the message his aunt sent. Got the okay, but we can't leave the grounds. Maggie said I can come there, so I'll bring the coffee with me. I'll meet you inside the atrium in Annex F. He wasn't surprised Maggie didn't allow him to leave. If she did that for him, then they'd have to allow others to do the same. Anyway, as long as they could meet, it really didn't matter the locale. He scratched his head, wondering where the atrium was in Annex F. He'd never been in that building. Using the app on his phone, he used it to guide him. Within 20 minutes, he arrived at his destination. The area reminded him of a ghost town. No one was around. The silence was ear-piercing. He called out, Anamara, are you here? He got no response. From his peripheral vision, he saw a flickering light reflecting through a window in a door. He tried the door handle. It was unlocked. He walked inside, realizing the flickering light he'd seen through the window was coming from numerous candles in the far corner of the room. He gasped as he honed his eyes on a figure laying vertically on some sort of table. A closer look had him realizing the table was actually a stone altar. He knew the person lying on it. Oh my God, he said as he ran to her. He stared in utter horror. It was Brianna. Her eyes were closed, and she wasn't breathing. Chapter 36. Everything felt so psychedelic. It had to be a nightmare Chase was experiencing. How could this be happening to Brianna? He extended his hand to touch her face. Only if he felt her skin would he then know for sure this was real. But his attempt failed. Something shocked him. He tried to touch her once more. The same thing happened. His fingers tingled and throbbed. You shouldn't try that again. A voice from the room's entry spoke. He spun hastily around. Maggie had entered. She wore a red velvet full-length cloak. Its hood rested over her hair. She had silver and gold, finely woven threads crisscrossing over her bare arms. She walked in a steady gait straight to him. The shield around her will electrocute you on the third try. The first 2 times were warnings, she informed him. I don't understand. Why is Brianna here? Is she alive or dead? He swallowed the tears that threatened to spill with his last question. She's alive, but in a state of paralysis. What happened to her? I had to put her into this dormant state for the ritual. I don't want her to witness what will happen. Ritual? What ritual? The one that will break the curse on you, Chase, another voice said in the background. It was his Aunt Amara who had arrived. Auntie, please tell Maggie she has to let Brianna go. He hadn't fully processed what his aunt's arrival and her words meant, only that she could help him reason with Maggie. His aunt stated, I'm afraid she can't do it, Chase. We need her to end the curse. You love Brianna, so she must be the one we sacrifice so that you can be saved.